Welcome to the Clear the Shelf podcast with Chris and Chris, the show that meets at the intersection of education and entertainment to discuss online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, wholesale, and all facets of selling on Amazon. We'll bring you news, tactics, strategies, insights, stories, and interviews to help you grow your Amazon business. And now, here are your hosts, Chris Grant and Chris Rasick. Hey guys, Chris Grant here, and I wanted to make a quick note before you start this podcast. Unfortunately, on my end, there is quite a bit of audio problems, a mic issue or something like that. I'm not 100% sure yet, but I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. However, we really wanted to publish this episode because there is some good content in here that I think will be helpful for the community, and we wanted to make sure to get it out, and of course, not miss another week of the podcast. But I want to apologize for the audio issues. I hope that you can get through it, and I am going to get to the bottom of it so this won't happen again. This is not the quality that I expect, nor is it the quality that I think that you deserve, and I'll make sure that it doesn't happen again. So just a little apology ahead of time, but let's go ahead and get to the show. What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Clear the Shelf podcast with Chris. We are back in the saddle. This both myself and my municipal co-host Chris Rasick, and this episode's going to be a really good one. We're going to be doing a mailbag episode. We answer questions that have come in from you people. But before we do that, please a huge solid smash the like button wherever you might be listening to this podcast. Hit subscribe, and if you could leave us a review, that would be a huge help, and we'll love you forever. At least I will. I can't speak for Chris. Now, before we get to the actual episode, I've teased this in the past, and we want to start giving some shout-outs for the people who do leave reviews, and I want to make sure that we start that this week and continue to do that just kind of as a thank you. So this week's review comes from Style Iconique, and she says, which I know that I'm assuming, but she says, "I'm so excited that Chris and Chris now have a podcast. They genuinely care for their Amazon sellers, and I look forward to hearing from them each week. I'm 9 months into my Amazon journey, and I'm grateful to have them along my side. Whether you're a newbie or seasoned seller, there's something new to take away from each episode." And I'm going to go ahead and take that as high praise. So Style, I appreciate that. If you guys would leave us a review, greatly appreciate it, and eventually give you a little shout out on the podcast as well. Now, before we get started with this mailbag episode where we actually answer some questions that you guys have sent in, there's a little bit of news. And we were away last week. That was my fault. I decided to take the family on a little vacation before back to school time, which is actually Wednesday, which is kind of insane to me. Yeah, it's crazy how fast this summer has gone. But the news is from about a week and a half ago or so, but it's that time of year when it is, we're about halfway through the year, and so companies are coming out with their earnings reports. And Amazon released theirs, and what's interesting is that Amazon's first-party online sales were $50.9 billion during the second quarter. Now, that represented less than 42% of its overall net sales of $121.2 billion. The part that I found interesting is that third sellers, so you and me, Chris, and everyone else listening, were responsible for 57% of units sold on Amazon in Q2. And according to Brian Olsavsky, which is Amazon's chief financial officer, that's a record high. It's never been that high. Now, of course, they are using units sold rather than gross merchandise volume. So, it's a little bit of a different measurement, but it's still a significant number. Now, in a related trend, which I thought was interesting, Amazon's revenue from third-party seller services, so our Amazon fees that I don't know what they call it, that gas and inflation fee that they imposed on us earlier this year, PPC charges, all of that stuff. Those topped $27 billion. Now, if you do keep up on the news, you'll know that that's enough dollars to allow Amazon to buy Roomba about 20 times. They just picked up Roomba for, I think, about 1.5 or 1.6 billion, and they now have maps of all of our houses, in this as well. So, fun time to be alive. But
you could say they're sweeping in the fees. Oh yeah, we're here all week, people.
Yes. Next week we will be introducing a rim shot sound effect for those kind of things. But what's interesting is that $27 billion was a record for a non-holiday quarter. Now, I don't know whether or not, I would imagine that probably took the money spent and made during Prime Day, which PPC costs tend to go up, and there are a lot of big brands on Amazon that are willing to spend $100,000 in a day on a sales holiday like that. But that was the biggest Amazon's ever made in a non-holiday quarter from their third-party seller services. So I thought that was interesting. Amazon seems to be doing well in the face of rising inflation, and it seems like Amazon sellers are doing all right, at least in the number of units they're selling. Difficult to tell who's profitable and who's not, but hopefully all of you guys listening are profitable, this year. So, but yeah, I thought that was really interesting. I'm fascinated to see what happens through the rest of the. I know that Amazon reported they expect the rest of the year pretty well. Walmart and Target their targets for the rest of the year, but Amazon, no, we're going to keep on cruising. And so, I don't know. I hope right.
Yeah, I mean that would make sense. Because it's well publicized. The glut of inventory that Walmart and Target is sitting on.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing a bit of liquidation right now, and not only the backlog, but then I imagine it's probably compounded by the fact that they have to clear some room for Q4 stock as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's gonna kind of eat away at the numbers a little bit, where Amazon doesn't really have the same problem. They just charge us storage fees, if they have too much inventory sitting around. But those are numbers. Those are promising numbers. That's Amazon's doing well, and third-party sellers continue to do well. That should beat back the market's saturated talk, between third-party sellers and the doomsayers that this is a dying industry and avenue for third parties.
Yeah, I agree. I will. It is kind of interesting because I do try to keep my on the pulse of what's going on in the retail world and Amazon and things like that. It's interesting when I walk into a store and I realize like exactly what I'm doing. And most people, for example, today I walked into a Walgreens to grab something, and I noticed that Halloween stuff is already out, which means, they ordered early because they wanted to make sure they could get what they wanted or what they needed for Halloween, and all that stuff sitting right next to the back to school stuff at Walgreens, and then right next to that, they were just slashing prices on summer stuff and some toys and things like that, and the clearance was deep, a lot deeper than I've seen in a long time at Walgreens. And so, I don't know, it's just fascinating to kind of see it in real life after you read it and think about it and digest it, and then you go and, like me, you go and look up that stuff on Amazon, and you're like, oh, there's a lot of profit to be made here because, there's a much bigger marketplace we can take it to. So.
Yeah, that's good news because Wags is in-store. Wags has been a little bare for a while, so that's promising to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, without further ado, this episode will be fun. It is going to be a mailbag episode. We've picked, I don't know, there's maybe some questions here, and we're not going to completely rapid fire through them, but we are going to get through all these questions. And then what I would suggest is I really do think that we're going to do some more of these episodes because, well, to be completely honest here, these are easy episodes. We don't have to do a lot of planning. We can copy and paste your questions and answer them, and so it makes for a nice, easy show prep. But it also gives you the opportunity to ask questions, and you may not believe this, but I actually do some research before these episodes and make sure that either I've got the right answer or I've had some time to come up with an opinion to be able to answer these. So hopefully this will be something you guys enjoy and we can do more of. If you want to ever ask a question, you want to get it on the show, for right now, the best way to do that is just send an email over to chris@cleartheshelf.com. And eventually we may get fancy and have some sort of way to send us a voice message or something. Until then, undo it, or you can DM any of us social media, which all of that is in the show notes, so you can follow along when we release these episodes and share on social media. So let's go ahead and dive in, man. What's the first question we got?
So I'll be driving the bus with the questions, and first couple I'm going to take some liberties as co-host, and I'm going to get some personal questions out of the way.
As you should.
Yes, take full advantage. So my first question is a little background on the question. It's been at least, I don't know, I'd say about 2 months since I sent you the replacement photo, but yet you insist on keeping the 70s porn mustache photo of me in the thumbnail. So my question is, does your sick sense of humor come naturally, or is it something that you've worked on?
Well, I did have to work on that a little bit. It took a little bit of time, a little bit of effort on my part, but it did come. I don't know. It seemed to come naturally. It was like riding a bike, but I wanted to get better at it. So, yeah, I'm sorry that you are. I'm sorry that you are victim to that.
And at this point, I mean, we're less than 2 months away from Movember, which is that's a charity that where you grow a mustache for the month of November. So at this point, it's probably not even worth changing. So you win this round, sir. All right. So, but then another personal question, and we had talked about this and just briefly, and we didn't get to dive into it, but in the various Facebook group and in the Discord, I always see people talking about how much they're winning the buy box or how they're not winning the buy box and whatnot, and different variations of a similar question. So my question is, considering regional buy boxes, the fact that someone in California is going to see a different seller than I am potentially, in Ohio, how can you definitively tell how much you've had the buy box?
That is a good question. And since Amazon is a black box and most other software is not going to tell you exactly how they get all their data, I'm going to say that I don't think you can definitively tell how much you buy box. That little buy box percentage number at Seller Central. I think they've got an algorithm based throwing a dart at a number and just feeding you something, because it's got to be off. There's no way that if I'm getting a 3% buy box share, that I should be selling through 1% of my inventory every single day, which is it's about where I am, and kind of where I try to be. But then you could go and you could look at your repricer. A lot of repricers will have what kind of buy box percentage you have, and mine is always different than what Amazon shows. But I think it's wrong too. I don't know that I'm necessarily getting the buy box 30% of the time or 35% of the time or whatever they're telling me. And if Keepa can't gather regional buy box data, and Amazon doesn't share regional buy box data. However, we know it exists, and you and I should probably do this test. But I've done it with one or two other folks where we've looked at the exact same item at the exact same time, and it is definitely two different in the buy box. Ohio and Florida, where I was where I've done things. So I don't know.
Well,
I think it's
you even see it with Rev Seller. You'll look and their buy box number is different from the actual buy box that I'm looking at. On the Amazon listing itself. So
yeah, but then if you go into the offers, you can see, oh, that's who they're polling. Right. Because it'll be right there. So yeah, as much as I'd love to say, oh, well, just check here and you're going to be able to find out how much percentage of the buy box you're getting, I think it's one of those numbers that we're never going to really know.
Yeah, that's how I looked at it too. You see the question so much, like, hey, I'm winning the buy box. That it's like, how do you know? Even sellers less experienced than me. It's like I must have missed that day of the OA challenge or something. And you start questioning things. But I always chalked it up to, kind of like sales velocity. Mm-hmm. Amazon's not going to publish what the actual sales are, and everywhere you look, you're going to get a different answer. Yep. Whether it be Jungle Scouts Estimator, whether it be Rev Seller, whether it be Seller Amp, Keepa, all these places. But you can kind of triangulate the general idea. Mm-hmm. And that was always good enough for me, and, yep. and that kind of leads to my follow-up question. As much as we do see that question about obsessing, getting real granular with how much you're winning the sellers or individually winning the buy box, does it really matter? Assuming that your min price is lower than the current buy box and you have the ASIN turned on in your repricer, is there any benefit to babysitting it any further?
I don't think so. I mean, that's my opinion anyway. So my opinion is that Amazon sellers in general, at least what I've seen, tend to obsess over all these numbers that we get thrown at us, from Seller Central, from, repricing software, from, sales estimate softwares, and all these things. And I really think that too many people obsess over too much. And that takes a lot of bandwidth. We've only got so many decisions that we can make every single day. As a matter of fact, Jeff Bezos has a semi-famous quote or short talk on decision making, and he's like, if I could make 3 good decisions single day, he's like, we're going to be on track. He's like, any more than that, I'm out. And I think that maybe we need to take a step back and, like, personally, I want to know, okay, how much of my inventory am I selling through on a daily basis? Am I hitting 1 or 2% of my total available inventory sold every single day? If I am, great. Awesome. I'm on the right track. I'm happy with where things are going. And if my inventory is increasing and my percentage of sales is staying the same at, somewhere between 1 and 2% per day, I'm going to see growth. And, of course, I also need to pair that with, am I looking at, my profit margins? Am I looking at my ROI? Am I looking at, those bottom line numbers that actually matter? And if I can stay in the black in those bottom line numbers, and I can stay in that 1 to 2% of inventory being sold every single day, and then I just grow my inventory, well, I should have a growing business. We want in business in general, and especially on Amazon, there are so many unknowns that we just cannot factor for, especially with Amazon, because they don't lend to their algorithms. They don't into all things that they do. They don't want to tell us. Not going to, and so I think that because we kind of work in this gray area all the time, people want anything concrete that they can grasp onto. even if they don't really matter in the long run. So, but I don't know how to help people get over that and just focus on the things that actually do matter.
Yeah, it's kind of a natural tendency. I'm 3.5 years in, and I look back on some of the attitudes and some of the questions that I was asking at that time, and you have to fight an impatience,
Mm-hmm.
because especially when you're a beginning seller, think about how many, pretty much everyone you talk to in that space is going to be more experienced than you, so you have to fight that urge to want to catch up, to their level, and you want to get sales, and that's, we were talking about it in the mastermind group, the how new sellers immediately think they have to ungate everything,
Mm-hmm.
because they think they see too many things that they're gated in, and they think it's almost like a grass is greener kind of thing. They think if I open up all the stuff, things are going to be a lot easier, when that's, I mean, things will get easier, but that's not necessarily the path to get there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's there's a certain amount of reps that you need to get in, and I mean, don't get me wrong, ungating some certain things can make things easier, your seller career easier, but it's certainly not necessary, to be a few weeks in and have Nike and Adidas ungated. It's but yeah, I think there's there's a lot of overlap, with newer sellers that they kind of get in a hurry, and they want to spend some time on things that might not be quite as urgent as they think.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I think I touched on really quickly about how we're kind of always in this gray area. We kind of work with a lot of unknowns, a lot of variables, um, and I see it. I see that it's difficult for some people to kind of get over. And I don't necessarily one person. I think I blame the we mentality a little bit. I think about as an employee, I knew exactly what my job is. I did A, B, and C. That was it. Uh, I didn't do any more. I didn't do any less, and I knew exactly how to do it. There were rules and all of that. And when we become Amazon sellers and entrepreneurs and business owners or self-employed or whatever you want to call it, uh, I mean, you wake up every day and you're just like, man, you don't know what might come down the pike at you. If you're going to your job, you know exactly what's going to happen. You're going to get yelled at by your boss because you're 5 minutes late. You're going to slog through your work. You're going to spend lunch shopping on Amazon or scrolling social media. You're going to talk around the water cooler and, I don't know, make fun of some other employees, and then you're going to go home. But I wish that I could. I don't know. I've become comfortable being uncomfortable, and I wish that I could give that gift to everybody else who's just getting started, or even people who've been around for a while. Who just can't seem to make that transition to being comfortable, being uncomfortable. I guess once we figure that out, we're probably going to be like rich. Being able to share with people.
Yeah. At least in this business, you don't have to pretend to be productive for 6 of your 8 hours that you work. You just
Exactly.
be honest with yourself, do your 2 hour spurt, and
Yeah,
move on
exactly.
from
Then go
there.
watch some TV.
Right. All right. So we're gonna move to this next question's interesting. We just got this one today, actually. I think it was over the Discord. But the question is, does using public Wi-Fi put your account at risk for suspension due to potentially being linked to another account that's been suspended, or even, I guess, probably a duplicate account because the matching IP,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I totally get where this question's coming from. There have been people who are like, oh, well, hey, my sister, actually, I'll tell you a real story. So, for several years, my sister-in-law lived in one of my spare rooms, and she decided eventually that she wanted to start selling on Amazon. So we had some very strict rules in our house. One, she was not allowed to touch her. She was not allowed to touch my phone. We did use the same internet access, same Wi-Fi, but she used her own computer, she own phone, and we asked Amazon time, hey, I'm gonna have a family member who's also going to sell on Amazon from the location, the same address. Do you have any issues with that? Amazon said, nope, that's no problem, not a big deal, but she can never log into her account on my computer. Now we took a vacation or two as a big family unit, and we shared Wi-Fi on a cruise ship. We shared Wi-Fi in a hotel. Never had any issues at all. I've been to a ton of seller conferences where we're all sharing the same Wi-Fi. No issues. Never heard of anyone else having any issues. So go to a Panera, whatever. You're not going to have any issues like that. Amazon understands what they're seeing traffic wise. Now, I would say if you were to go to, maybe you're friends with a fellow Amazon seller, if I were to go over to Chris's house and hang out for a while, I would not ask for the Wi-Fi password and use my phone to check my sales on Amazon. Because Amazon does know that you log in from your IP address. Well, why is this other account all this logging into their account from your IP address? Now, could they figure it out and to be like, oh, well, maybe they're friends? Yeah, probably. A Google search would show that, oh, well, Chris Rasick and Chris Grant, they happen to know each other, fairly well. But they're not going to do that. And so you should protect yourself in that way. Or if you don't have cell service, bring some sort of hotspot or whatever it is. But in public, no issues at all.
Okay, good to know. All right, so this, we also have a question, and these questions are anonymous, so I can make fun of the people that ask them, right? I think it's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
This might be a little tinfoil hatish, but it says, I saw somewhere that sometimes Amazon is the seller, but using a different name. Is that true, and how can I know?
Definitely has some tinfoil hat vibes. What's that idiot's name who's getting sued out the wazoo right now?
Alex Jones.
Alex Jones, little Alex Jones, InfoWars feel to it. So, but they have an interesting question because it does come from a little bit of truth. There was a very short period of time Amazon was showing up as a seller. It wasn't showing Amazon, but what it was showing is it was showing the name of a female vice president at Amazon.
That's right.
I want to say Jennifer or something like that. And it was really, really weird. It must have been a glitch. And of course, as soon as we all figured it out, I know that Nate McAllister wrote a blog post on it. I created a meme or two making fun of it. And it was really interesting. But I would say less than a week later, that all went away. And so it must have been some glitch, or I don't know, maybe somebody was messing around with her and things like that. Now, the other thing you might see on Amazon is you might see the Amazon Global UK store on occasion. And I know that some people have asked me, hey, is this Amazon? Yeah, it is. I've actually ordered from them as a seller before. I don't necessarily know that all of the things that they sell are in the UK, because it seemed like it was shipped to me a lot faster than all the way across the pond. But other than that, I don't think Amazon hides in any way.
Okay. Yeah, and that VP, there was, speaking of tinfoil hats, there was some conspiracy theories going on about that. Like, they're favoring the VP, they're going to give her the buy box.
Yep. Oh yeah, that was a fun week.
Because that's something that would probably happen. All right. So in this one, this might be its own episode. I know you have you've done a video clip at least a short, if not a full episode on this topic.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we get around order cancellations at online stores when placing new orders or smaller test orders?
Okay. So, it's a good question. My default answer to most people, because this is usually like, Target's going to ban me. How do I get around it? Well, I've been buying from Target for like 7 or 8 years, and I've never been banned. So default answer is find suppliers that don't cancel your orders. And now is there are extensions now that can help that kind of stuff. There's OA Buddy. They don't sponsor the show, but we do have an affiliate link for it. So you're more welcome to support us in that way. I will. I don't mind saying that during the show, but find places that aren't going to cancel you, and there are plenty out there. I'm not going to start listing off places that won't cancel you, because then everyone's going to go shop there, and you got to do a little bit of your own work. But there are also ways around ban hammers. You can use VPNs. You can use different email addresses. You could use different mailing addresses. You could use privacy cards. There are a lot of different ways to get around these things. My question to a lot of people is it worth your time to do all of that? Target, for example. Let's say that you decide you're going to go really hard at Target. Let's say they always have a buy two get one free video game sale. This is where a friend of mine was actually banned for buying 300 of the video game from Target on the buy one free sale. I mean, he had that coming. He painted Target on his own back, and he deserved that.
He must have had fist in the air yelling YOLO as he did it.
Oh, oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Now, is there a way to get around that Target ban? Yeah, absolutely. Using those methods, using different email addresses, privacy cards, all of that stuff, wouldn't be too hard to do. But you have to question, is it worth the time and trouble to do that? Now, if you're making thousands a month at a particular site who doesn't like resellers, yeah, it might be worth your time. I love Target. I like sourcing Target. However, I realize that typically when I buy stuff from Target, I probably need to sell it pretty quickly, because a lot of other people source there, and they're gonna find it pretty quickly, and the price is going to end up going down. So if I were banned at Target, I probably would not try really hard to get around that ban. I would either buy in store or just stop sourcing there and source other places. We could go a lot deeper into the exact process on that. I don't think we can do that on this episode, but we could eventually.
Fun fact: I am banned at Target.
Are you really?
I am, and I have no idea why. Because
Interesting.
I am an eternal test buyer. Like I don't order more than it's single digits pretty much all the time. I thought I was treading very lightly, but I don't know, something happened. I don't know, maybe it was Prep Center or something like that.
That could be. Yeah, and see, one of the things that I do at Target is I often order the maximum quantity that I can. So in the past, I have ordered like 100 units at a time from Target. And one particular item I'm thinking of was a small and light grocery item, and you could order a maximum of 20. And I would do that 5 times in a day, and then I would wait a week and I would reorder, another 100, and then, the next week, and so on. But those items were all full price. I was never getting discounts or anything other than, a red card discount or something like that. Had an issue. If you want to use Target or someplace try to find products that loss leaders for them, because that's pissing them off to be quest.
Right. True. And one thing that's been working for me at stores not named Target, if I do get a card declined or something like that, simply adding my credit card to a PayPal account and then checking out through PayPal, that has worked for me a lot. And that's my go-to. So, and if that doesn't work, I probably bail on the order altogether from there. So
yeah,
I'm not setting up my prep center as the billing address on the credit cards, and there's there are advanced tactics out there, but I like to keep it pretty simple. So all right, so this is another can of worms thing that we could probably talk for quite a long time about, but this has to do with variations. The question is regarding variations of a product. It looks like each variation has a different ASIN, but is Keep It tracking the product listing across all variations? So by going under the variations tab, are we basically treating each variation like a separate product? The asker is slightly confused and appreciates the response.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, this is a lot of questions in one. So kind of break this down. It looks like variation has a different ASIN. Yeah, yes, that's true. So the way that let's say shoes, for example, with a shoe listing, you're going to have a bunch of different colors, and then under each one of those colors, you're going to have a bunch of different sizes. Now, the listing will have what's called a parent ASIN. So whatever that is, that will be the parent ASIN. That's for the entire listing. And then each variation, so the white shoe size 12 is going to have its own own ASIN, and then the black shoe in size 11 is going to have its own ASIN, and those ASINs are called child ASINs. Now, the way that these are tracked on on Keepa is a little weird. All of the sales for child ASINs roll up to the parent ASIN. So when you look at the sales rank on something that has variations, the sales rank is going to be reflective of all of the sales for all of the child ASINs. All right, so if size 12 in sells 400 a month, and size 7 in white sells 50 a month, well then they're going to be added together, and they all roll up to that parent ASIN. Now, the way that Keepa tracks that, we talked about how they track the sales rank. They do track the price for each child ASIN. So the black size 11 and the white size 12, they will have different prices on them, and you'll see that in the graph, but the sales rank will stay the same. Keepa will also track the number of reviews that are different for each variation. So you'll be able to see that one size and one color has 12 reviews over the past 12 months, and this other size and color variation has 50 reviews over the past 12 months, or whatever you happen to be looking at. So you do need to kind of treat them like their own separate products, but you've got to also look at it so that you're kind of looking at the whole. Okay. And one of the other things I like to look at when I'm looking at variations is I want to make sure that I'm not buying some that is kind of what I call a flyer. So let's say the average price across the ASIN is $50, but one single variation is sell for $120. Well, that's going to throw up a red flag to me, and I'm going to wonder, well, does it historically sell at that price, and is it getting reviews at that price, and things like that? So variations can be a difficult topic to tackle, and we probably should go kind of in depth on how they work and stuff like that. But I think that's an okay 1,000-foot view of them.
Right. So this is a chain of custody question next. It says, you mentioned not sourcing from eBay because of chain of custody, not being able to prove chain of custody. Could you explain more about what chain of custody is? They say, I knew approval was needed to sell certain brands or items, but I hadn't heard of chain of custody.
This is a good one. So my general advice is not to source on eBay. Now, there are some caveats to that. I think Best Buy still sells on eBay. I know that in another lifetime, or what feels like another time, Toys R Us had an eBay store. I believe Adidas still sells on eBay. So would I buy those places on eBay? Probably. I don't think I'd have a problem there. Your receipt is going to say that you bought it from Adidas USA or Best Buy, and I would really fight with those. But if I were to buy an item from eBay from, I don't know, Jim's Bait and Tackle, you're not going to be able to show Amazon that the item you purchased is legit, because Jim's Bait and Tackle is nobody. They're not a known retailer like Walmart, Target, etc. And so you don't know where that seller bought the item. I recently purchased a toy for my son. Really wanted this. I don't know this. What was it? So he plays Roblox and he likes to play this game, Adopt Me. And he's also figured out what eBay is. And so he'll go and things on eBay or Google Shopping or whatever. And he had a plush toy from one of the characters from this Roblox game. And he found it on eBay and said, "Daddy, could I please have this plush?" And I said, okay. I said, but when you get it, you are going to be disappointed. I said, because the person selling this, they are buying these counterfeit or cheaply made items from Alibaba or AliExpress, and that's what you're going to get. And he said, no, that's not it. That's not what's going to happen. And so sure enough, it shows up. That's exactly what happened. And one eyeball's fallen off, and I'm pretty sure it was lead lined or whatever. But that's the kind of thing that you risk there. And that now, could you go to Jim's Bait and Tackle shop and say, hey, do you happen to have the receipt from where you purchased this item so that I could show Amazon that we've got a really good chain of custody? It came from Walmart to Jim's Bait and Tackle, to Chris's storefront to the end consumer, and you could show that convoluted chain of custody that it's a legit item. But Jim's Bait and Tackle might be a Saturday morning garage sailor or a thrift shop buyer or what, and then they're going to have a receipt that's no good, or they're not going to have any at all because they bought it from Sally Street. And now your custody is ruined, and you cannot show the provenance of an item. Start using Pawn Stars talk. But you cannot show that an item is actually legit or has come from, directly from Hasbro or directly from Walmart, where we know they have good sources for their products. So that's why I typically tell people, don't go buy off of eBay.
All right. In the spirit of Pawn Stars, they ask for chain of custody. You go, oh, best I can do is this receipt ticket. Right? Is that Pawn Stars where you always?
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly who
everything's
that is.
lowballed. Yeah. Best I could do. All right. That's all right. So we this might be tinged with a bit of personal experience here. But the question is, it seems that Amazon is increasingly losing inventory. Okay. Let's assume that's a fact. How do you deal with this, and how would you manage cash flow for this? Which those are actually good questions. I question the validity of the preemptive statement.
So this is sort of an anecdotal question, because everyone's perception is reality, and if you happen to be a string of bad luck where Amazon is losing inventory, well, of course that's happening to everybody. I will have to say personally, Amazon's been pretty good to me over the past year or two. There have been times where it does seem like Amazon is losing more of my inventory than other times, and it sort of goes in these waves. How do you deal with this? Well, there are a couple of things. Number one, you need to have good records. You need to make sure that you're keeping your receipts or your invoices, and they're easy to find, and you can have something you can annotate and show Amazon. Listen, here is what I sent in. Inventory Lab can help you with this, or if you use ScanPower or whatever. But being able to show Amazon the box contents is also very helpful in addition to your receipts. And then on top of that, I don't think it's a bad idea to maybe even take pictures of open boxes before you send them in, and saving those along with your receipts. Now, does that sound like a huge pain in the neck? Absolutely. Taking a picture of it, making sure it's dated properly, or it's got the right shipment ID attached to it, or whatever. Yeah, that sounds like 5 minutes of hassle, but that picture might get you reimbursed, where maybe someone's having a bad day and they don't want to reimburse based on receipts or box contents. But if you have all of those things, you should be fine. Is it a headache? Yes, absolutely. Is it something you want to deal with? Not really. It's also something you could outsource. If you're a client of like Seller Candy, or you have a virtual assistant, you can have them bang their head against the brick wall as long as it takes instead of you, because your sanity is probably worth more than the couple of dollars that it would cost. Now, how do you manage cash flow for this kind of thing? I think the only thing you can do is have some cash in reserves. This kind of thing is bound to happen. Doesn't matter if you're Walmart, your Target, or you are a $100 a month seller on Amazon. There's going to be a time where you're going to come cash flow pinch. Walmart and Target have institutional line credit for these kinds of issues, but for us, lowly retailers, we've got to have our own cash saved up for these kinds of pinches. So what I do is I actually have a savings account where I keep some, an extra bit of money in case I come into a cash flow crunch like this, where I can tap into that to kind of tide me over until I get reimbursed by Amazon, and then I can refill those cash reserves. Alternatively, you could have maybe an extra credit card laying around. Maybe you could get a business line of credit that you leave laying around and don't use all of. Or maybe you've got a rich uncle that you could go and tap into and ask for some sort of short-term loan with somewhat favorable terms. But I think that's really the best you can do. You need to know that there are going to be rainy days, and there needs to be some sort of rainy day fund, however that might look for you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, and this may feel like a meatball kind of answer a little bit, but I think a certain amount of consistency can alleviate the sting. It's unfortunately something that you have to be prepared for, but if you have your ducks in a row and you have your documentation and you've done everything right just in case, I think unless you're struggling to get your shipping cost down, if you're struggling to get a shipment together to get your cents per pound calculation down under 50 cents a pound or whatever, unless you're in that situation, I think just doing consistent batches, just kind of focusing on the process and just keep pumping stuff in steadily, as opposed to just doing gigantic shipments, maybe once or twice a month or something like that. That would obviously alleviate the sting too. Now whether that's feasible on an individual level or not, that's another question, but that would certainly help too.
I definitely agree with that. There was a time when I would only ship in like once a month, I'd love to say that that was tactical. It wasn't. It was out of pure laziness than anything. The fact that I enjoyed sourcing, I enjoy prepping and shipping. And those were the time when I wall and be like, oh crap, I don't have any cash. I don't have any cash flow coming in. I don't, like, what do I do? How do I go? So, well, I had to wait till stuff started selling, but then I moved to prep center, and then you get weekly shipments, or, well, actually, before we had a prep center, we actually hired someone, and we were doing twice weekly shipments, and the difference in cash flow between twice weekly shipments and a once a month shipment is incredible. It's absolutely insane.
Yep.
And then you pair, I am very privileged in the fact that I've got daily payouts with no reserves. But you pair it with something like that, and you've got you can create a serious cash flow monster. If you just stick to the process.
Definitely, because there's a very weird. Takes a while to get used to the ebbs and flows of the money with Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
You see that question a lot in the from newer sellers. They have, they sell a couple $100 worth of stuff, and then they look on the payments tab and they're getting $6 back from Amazon, and they don't, and I'm not sure I could explain it coherently either, but there's a bit of a lag before you actually get the profits. So
a couple other things I might add about cash flow. One, a lot of people think as they get into this, and maybe they come to this with the whole, this is it. This is my ticket out of a 9 to 5. This is how I get rich. Whatever brings you to Amazon, that's fine. But then we get to the reality portion, and you need to realize that it's probably the grass is not greener on the other side of the fence. There is no business that is not going to have cash flow issues at some point. It doesn't matter if it's SaaS, doesn't matter if it's a brick and mortar business. At some point, there is likely going to be some sort of cash flow issue, and you just need to know that, be ready for it. It's kind of the nature of a business owner. Then a couple of books that may be helpful are Small Time Operator, a great book to be able to manage a business, kind of a sole prop or an individual, and manage things like Keller, and then just about anything by Mike Michalowicz. So you've got Profit First, for the e-com seller, you got the Pumpkin Plan, and he's got other books as well. But those would all be helpful to read through and kind of help you come up with a system to manage your cash flow properly. And I guess a spoiler alert, in all of those books, they're going to be talking about some sort of rainy day slush fund for those times when there are pinches. They have different names for them, but they're all going to be in there.
Yes. And the one asterisk I would put on one thing you said, according to my 9-year-old daughter, there will be no cash flow issues when she becomes a YouTube star and a TikTok influencer. So that's,
oh man,
just
all 9-year-olds have the exact same dream of being a YouTube star. It's in.
Yes, there's got to be some sort of cut, because if I gotta be on the background of a TikTok video while I'm trying to make dinner or something like that, I need some royalties. So
absolutely,
yeah. So all right, so this one I have zero input on this next question.
All right,
because they tease me in the mastermind. I have never ever done anything FBM. I am 100% FBA.
You, sir, deserve a scarlet letter or something.
100%, 3.5 years. 100%. So, but the question is, what makes you do FBM instead of FBA, other than maybe a hazmat issue?
All right. This is a good question. So hazmat, I am hazmat approved, so I can send those into FBA, and I typically will. Um, un- Unless the items are selling really, really fast and there are no FBA sellers, I might merchant fulfill them just for purpose of speed. So typically for me, I merchant fulfill when I know things are selling at an insane rate. So I'll bring up actually a leak from last year's Q4 group, the one chip challenge. So standing in a 7-Eleven, I saw the one chip challenge sitting there. I look it up on Amazon. Sure enough, they're ranked like under 1,000 on Amazon. And I buy the entire display, and then I buy all of the displays at maybe half a dozen other 7-Elevens in my area. Those were selling at such an incredible clip that I figured I could sell it merchant fulfilled and be able to get it out faster than having to send it into Amazon and wait for them to intake it and things like that. And then I'd get my money back really, really quickly. And I also wanted to make sure to be able to get in and out before the price tanked. Well, the price actually didn't really tank. It stayed pretty solid just because the demand was there. That was a big factor for me. It was just speed. And then some people would say, well, but if I'm going to merchant and I'm selling to FBA sellers, aren't they going to get the buy box? Well, we'll go back to one of our previous questions, regional buy boxes. When I sold those one chip challenges, I want to say that 60 to 70% of them stayed in the state of Florida. And even though there were FBA sellers at the same price as me, because of the fact that I could get them to Florida buyers faster than someone whose inventory was in South Carolina or Kentucky or Ohio, I was getting a regional buy box here, and I was selling through without an issue. So those are really the things that I look for in a merchant fulfilled product. Items that are moving really, really fast, and that's really about it for me. I don't go necessarily looking for them, but you're going to find a lot of opportunities with Hot Toys in Q4 where you can buy them in store, you can list them before you've checked out, and you'll sell the item before you check out of the store because it's a Cocoa Melon that's ranked 100 in toys, and you compete with FBA sellers. You're going to get some regional buy box, and it's going to go to a buyer right down the street from you, and you can get it to them next day really, really quickly. So that's kind of stuff to look for in FBM.
Nice. And those one chip challenge, that lead alone paid for the entire Q4 group last year.
Yeah, I would dare say it should have paid for the Q4 group for dozens of people, in as long as they actually went out and bought them.
No, and I of course I did all of mine FBA though, so I think the limited supply kept that good. I think I was definitely confident in doing it that way. And if any of my friends are listening, I am not an MFer, so despite what you guys say. So
yeah, I should add one more thing to this merchant fulfilled thing. I will merchant fulfill if I'm testing something. So I won't tell the whole story here. As I told Chris about this in a message not too long ago, but I recently created a listing, and I'm not one to create listings very often. I had no idea whether or not it would gain traction. I kind of thought it might. And ended up, it did gain traction. Did merchant fulfill the ones that I sold because, it was a test. I'm going to return the items if they didn't. But I also didn't want to send in 6 units of a product to Amazon just to test to see whether or not it would sell. So created the listing, merchant fulfilled the items that sold, ran a little bit of, it cost me about 50 cents worth of PPC to get, a couple of sales, and then the rest of it was organic. And I just merchant fulfilled those really just to not have to ship in, 6 items from my house, or send them off to a prep center or whatever. That would be the other reason if I was testing something.
All right. So next question is, if I'm using FBA in terms of competition analysis, should I only be checking FBA sellers? This kind of ties into what we were talking about.
Yeah. I would argue, I would say probably not. The buy box is really what's important these days more than anything else. You want to be able to have that piece of real estate on Amazon on sales, and the algorithm changes sometimes. So, Chris, you probably remember the height of COVID. It seemed like merchant fulfilled was actually, the algorithm had changed so that merchant fulfilled was weighted heavier, and you could actually sell for a higher price merchant fulfilled than you could as an FBA seller, and you'd actually get the buy box. And a lot of that had to do with the speed at which Amazon could, get things out. They were down on employees were sick, things like that, but you're shipping out of your house or whatever, and so they knew things were going to go a little bit faster. Now it seems to be the other way. Does FBA get the buy box weighted a little bit more than FBM? It seems that way, but merchant fulfilled sellers can still get the buy box, and so I like to take them all into account. But I know that I could typically charge a little bit more than a merchant fulfilled seller and hopefully take over the buy box. But I don't know. I always want to see now. But there's kind of a flip side to them where there are some people for Prime only. There's that little filter where they only want to sign products, and those are going to be mostly FBA sellers. There are some FBM Prime sellers out there, a whole lot. In that case, they're only going to see FBA sellers, but I don't know how many people actually use that filter, so I kind of try to take a much larger view personally.
Yeah, and it seems like from my experience, FBM sellers can have the buy box, but I think there are different strengths of grip that they have. It seems like there are some that, if an FBM seller is sitting there at $34.99 on a product, sometimes I could jump in at $39.99 FBA and take the buy box.
Mm-hmm.
Other times I need to go $34.98 if I want to pry it away.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can just put the blinders on necessarily. If you're truly, looking at doing competition analysis like that, I don't think you can just kind of completely shun, FBA altogether.
I agree, and then you're probably gonna, if you go out and you consume a of Amazon content, you hear some people say, oh well, I sell through time at 15% higher than other FBAs and things like that, and that does happen on occasion, but again, I don't think that they're necessarily taking into account the fact that there are regional buy boxes. And that's something you can't account for when you're trying to buy a product. You can't say, oh, well, I know my inventory is probably going to be in this area because, today's shipment, maybe your inventory is all on the East Coast, and then tomorrow's shipment, Well, maybe all of it gets transferred to the West Coast. It's up to the algorithm where Amazon feels like they need the inventory. So I'd love to be able to be like, oh yeah, just price 15% above everybody else, and you're going to get sales eventually. But that has to do with regional buy boxes, and I don't know. It's too much to try to wrap your mind around, while also trying to source and make sure that you're making good buying decisions and looking at keep a graph and ROIs and net profits and all of those things. So
I think just in general, I think it's good advice. Like any content that you're consuming that has really sharp edge definitive statements, maybe take with the grainest salt. I think that's the theme here, is that there's gray areas, and there's a little bit of there's wiggle room in everything. Anybody that's a little overconfident with their responses, be wary of.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so and now this is interesting too. This is another potential episode on its own. How do you set goals for your Amazon business? Do you have a daily spend goal, a monthly spend goal? Are you shooting for a certain number of units purchased? There's a lot of meat on this bone.
Yeah. This probably is something that we do need to do an entire episode on. So, and we kind of talked about this in the past, but I think that you need to have a North Star. You do need to have a goal in mind, okay? But then you've got to forget the goal to focus on the process. And what easiest way to break your goal into bite size or fun size little chunks, and becomes your process. So for me, it's a daily spend goal. That seems to be the easiest way to kind of hit that long term, that maybe that annual goal. So we have a rule. We don't typically do public math, so we're going to use some round numbers, and we're going to use some really don't check this math, okay? So let's say that you want to sell $100,000 in a year on Amazon, and let's just say that you have a 20% ROI. Well, now it's time for us to back into those numbers, okay? So at a 20% ROI, how much do we need to buy to send into Amazon to be able to sell $100,000 a year? Off the top of my head, I have no idea. But let's just say it's $250 per day, because you source 5 days per week, 4 weeks out of the month. Now, my $100,000 has been backed into a nice chunk of $250. That's what I have to do every single day. I spend $250, and I have to worry about tomorrow. I don't have to worry next week, because what happens when you worry about tomorrow and next week? Well, you become anxious. Anxiety takes over. Am I going to hit this goal? That kind of stuff. You don't need that in your life. You need something that you can knock down today that's going to get you to your goal tomorrow. A great book on this topic would be The One Thing by Gary Keller. Fantastic book. But that's what I do personally. So whatever your goal is, break that down into little bite-sized chunks, and then just focus on that. Chris has a fantastic tracker, which you can find in the show notes. You can drop your email. He'll send it right over to you. And it allows you to break all of that down, so you can track every single day. How much did I buy? How much did I spend? And did I hit my goal for the day? And as long as you do that, and you continue to do it over time, and I would throw in there, maybe try to get one better every day or every week on that spend goal, especially as you get better at sourcing, and then that will naturally lead you into a growing business over time. And I guess another thing about this, don't bite off more than you can do. This is not a get rich quick business. This is something you want to have for the long term. So, if your daily spend goal is $50, that's fine, but know that, in a month, hopefully it's going to be $65 and so on and so forth. And you kind of grow this business over a long period of time.
Yeah. And anyone who's listening who's downloaded and started using that tracker, I've used it every single day for about 3 years straight now. And it really helps. It's a lot easier, in my opinion, to measure things when you've chopped it down into individual days. And the nice thing about the tracker is it'll actually tell you what pace you're on. It's just calculations based on what your monthly goal is. So, but I can see, especially once you get into the point where you're taking some days off, like when we went on vacation a few months ago, I know I can start buying extra before we leave and then put my zeros in for the time I was away. And then I can see where I'm at, and then I've got a good idea of what kind of pace I need to operate at once I'm back at the grind. So, but the question was, do you have a daily spend goal, a monthly spend goal? Are you shooting for a certain amount of units? The answer is D, all of the above. Because like you explained, the daily kind of feeds into the monthly, and then keep a track of units. If you have a prep center, or you've got you brought on a second prep center as a backup, you may be tracking minimum units that you need to get over there. Or it may be a measurement that you like as far as your growth in your own business. Maybe there's a certain amount of units. Maybe that's a target that you're shooting for instead of sales volume. So I think they're all important.
Yeah. If I could implore people to do one thing for their business is, I know some people are like, oh yeah, this is how many units we every month, but I would beg you to in average selling price before focusing on number of units sold. It's a lot easier to hit $100,000 a year in selling $50 items than is selling $10 items. And oftentimes you might find a little bit fewer competition because people are worried about spending more when they sell higher priced items, and you can oftentimes find some really good discounts and coupon codes and things like that for some of these items that are a little bit higher priced. So yeah, if you can focus on some higher priced items, and you're going to see those numbers go up.
Yeah, it does make things a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So, we replace the tinfoil hat with maybe a black or a gray hat.
Yeah.
And I certainly hope this person isn't asking this because they're considering it. I hope it's just general curiosity. But the question is it possible to buy out all competitors' products on a listing, list my own for sale, and then after I sell out, return all the competitors' products to them? The asker cannot imagine this would be okay with Amazon, but my Google searches don't actually give me a clear answer. Some people say this is totally acceptable.
This sounds like someone who maybe has spent some time on in the depths of the Amazon forums, the cesspool that place is, or I don't know. You know what? The other place, Reddit, it's really great, but on the other hand, there is also it's a cesspool over there as well. But
see, and you're showing favoritism to TikTok again. You're trying to keep them out of the conversation.
Actually, that's the other thing. If this was said on TikTok, man, daggone. No. Can you do that? Could you do it? Theoretically, yeah. Has it happened? Yes, absolutely. Matter of fact, I think, and I can't remember if we talked about it on the show or I know that I've in our Discord or in our Facebook somewhere, but there was for a time a quote unquote going around where if you bought inventory that someone had with like a bad card number, Amazon would deliver to you. Well, of course, that's not the case. If Amazon didn't get paid, they didn't ship the items to you. But what it did is it essentially pulled the products out of someone's storefront and put them on hold until Amazon figured out that the items weren't paid for. Now, if you do this to your competitors and anybody figures it out, I would imagine they're probably going to try to report you to Amazon. And that would be against, I want to say, Section 3 of the Amazon agreement that you signed becoming an Amazon seller. I can't remember exactly what that's called, but you're messing with something you're not supposed to be messing with. Now, could you do it? Yeah. Is that ethical? No, absolutely not. I would say that's highly unethical, and against Amazon terms of service. Please don't do that. If you read this on some forum and you just have across our podcast, for the love of things holy and good, don't do that. It's wrong. Eventually, karma will catch up to you in the way of some sort of Amazon suspension or something like that.
Or if you have your home address listed as your business on your seller profile, potentially torches and pitchforks may show up as well. So, no, not acceptable at all. So, all right, next one. When ordering products online, do you try to get free shipping on every order? Or are you counting the shipping cost as part of your buy cost when you're sourcing? I think maybe the more important question is, what do you do if you have to pay shipping as far as factoring it into the buy cost?
Yeah. So here's what I will do when I do have to pay shipping. So, and actually, here's one of the places that this happens on I wouldn't say fairly regular, but more often than you might think. I like to source Walgreens. I've said it in the past on the podcast. I've said it in just about every sourcing video I've ever made. And on I don't know, maybe 20% of the orders I make there, I end up having to pay a little bit of, especially if I'm buying things and stuff like that. So what I will do is I will typically take the cost of shipping and I will divide it out over the number of items that I am purchasing. And that way, it just makes it nice and easy. Maybe it adds 20 or 25 cents or 50 cents or whatever it is to every single item, and I just put that into my cost of goods sold. Now, do I try to get free shipping? Yeah, absolutely. If a place offers free shipping, it's absolutely great. But I will not stay away from a source just because they don't offer free shipping. And here's the reason. When a retailer does not offer free shipping, you're probably actually looking at quite an opportunity, because there are going to be a lot of other people who are like, how am I supposed to make money if I have to pay shipping without ever doing any more research at all? That puts them off because they're thinking like a customer and they're not thinking like someone who is selling things for profit. Well, heck, I'll just throw one out. Webstore.com. Not get free shipping there, but there are pull items on that website. If you want to get free shipping, you're going to pay them something like $100 a month. That's a pretty tall hurdle for a lot of Amazon sellers. To pay $100 a month without any guarantee of being able to find profitable items just to get free shipping. Well, that $100 a month is probably going to be worth it in the long term if you get really, really good at sourcing that particular site. And they're not the only one like that. They're just one of the only well-known ones out there. So I definitely would not turn away from a site just because there's not free shipping, and then I would just divide the shipping cost over the number of units I'm buying, and that's as easy as it is, in my opinion.
Yep. I've had a lot of sessions where I am going through different quantities by one increment up and down to say, and then recalculating shipping and like where the sweet spot is on my buy cost.
Yeah,
I don't.
what price band are they going to put you in based on weight, or
Yeah,
is it gonna hit dimensional and stuff? Yeah, some of it can be a little tricky.
yeah. And I actually, speaking of Walgreens, that's actually what I use my Walgreens cash for. Is a lot of the time to offset shipping costs. 'Cause some of those, it doesn't take too long on some of these stuff before you actually have to. I've got a surcharge, because there's a certain weight limit, where they start they start recharging shipping. So I'll use my Walgreens cash for that, and then sales tax if I have to pay it on a BOPUS order or something. So, quick quiz right now. Who will have more? I have no idea how he uses his. I just gave you a little snippet on how I use mine. What is your current balance of Walgreens cash?
Oh, I just spent a ton of it. So my
Yeah.
current balance is like $9.75.
Oh, I smoked you. See, I wrote it down. I wrote it down. So I'm showing it on YouTube. Can you see that?
I'm looking at a small 290, very nice.
290, right? So, because you only spend $50 at a time, right?
Yeah, yeah, you can only spend 50
Yeah.
bucks at a time. I the other day I had around $400. I went through and I ordered a ton of stuff, and I blew through it. I was happy on one of them because it got my cost per down to something like $2.85. On I was buying it. It felt really good.
Then the follow-up question would be, how do you figure the buy cost on that?
Mm-hmm.
So it makes replens tough if you're constantly throwing in odd numbers of rewards in there.
Oh yeah.
You end up going back like 6 weeks later. It's like, how in the world did I get it for that price? If you don't if you don't have your finger on it. All right, so we only got a couple more. All right, we're doing okay on time now that we've
Yeah.
come to grips that we're just going to keep talking for like 90 minutes, no matter what we're talking about. So, as a lot of us sell grocery replenishables, all right, there's the fear that a lot of items are having their costs inflated at the stores, but this is not translating to an increase of listing price on Amazon. Wow, that was quite a ride. Would you see this as an actual issue that it could affect sales?
This question seems a bit loaded.
Right.
So here's one of the things about this question that I necessarily care for. You're selling out of somebody else's pocket, and you're assuming that the other people, their cost of goods is the same as yours, and we can't do that. This is something that I think is endemic in the Amazon seller community. We assume that if my cost is $10, that everyone else I'm competing against, their cost is $10. When maybe you're competing against a grocery seller who only sources liquidation grocery stores, like Grocery Outlet, or I don't know, there were a couple of Amish-owned grocery liquidators in Ohio that I used to frequent, who had great prices you could never touch, even with all the discounts and coupons and all of that stuff at regular grocery stores. So there have been times where my cost of goods sold, I know that there's probably no way anyone could touch them. which could allow me for a lease or not have to increase my when everyone else might feel like they need to because of something like inflation. I know that right now we're recording this on 8th of 2022, so we know inflation is at a 40-year high. New numbers are coming out in 48 hours. We'll know whether or not they've turned the corner or if they're going to keep going up. But there's a lot of assumptions in this question, which we cannot do that. Okay. Now, will prices end up rising on Amazon if inflation continues? Yeah, most likely. I mean, not everyone is in this business to lose money. There are some people who are, it seems, but most people want to make a buck doing this. So, will the inflationary pressure catch up to things like grocery on Amazon? Yeah, absolutely. But we're also, you got to wait for all that back stock to get out of there. And do people go and source things where they're not seeing the price on items? So is it going to allow for that to all turn over? Yeah. Now, would I see that this is going to affect sales? Inflation will affect sales eventually. I mean, it doesn't seem like it has quite yet. I mean, at least that's what the numbers are saying. But I'm not an economist either, so I know how to tell you about a supply-demand curve, but after that, I'm not smart enough to tell you, what's actually going to happen. I didn't expect jobs numbers to be over 500,000 the last job numbers report, and sure enough, the U.S. economy just went out there and just crushed it. It's a weird time right now. So, me trying to prognosticate what all of these factors are going to do, I'm going to leave that up to Paul Krugman.
Yeah, it's I think this is a bit another answer that the person asked it's not going to like. We have a natural tendency to kind of hang on to the negative information as opposed to the positive. So this kind of feels like a kind of compounding, price tanking, with inflation news, which is it's all around us. It's floating. So kind of combine those two things. The one thing I will say is in regards to inflation, probably one of the bigger things you need to watch is what companies do with their products, especially since we're talking about groceries. Because one of the tactics that these companies will take is they may keep the price the same, but you may notice a smaller volume in the container. They'll just, and it could be just an ounce or two, just different. All of a sudden, it's not 16 ounces, it's 14 ounces. You may not notice it with the price, because they can keep the price the same. It's kind of a sneaky way for them to, get a little bit more money or reduce their costs. So, but you could certainly see an Amazon customer, going, I've been ordering this on Amazon for 3 years, and it's always been a 16 ounce, and now all of a sudden it's a 14 ounce, and damn you, Bezos, you're price gouging, all that stuff. It'll be the greatest hits album of cliches. So
you made a really, really good point that I hope people heard, but we tend to on to the negative. I am a recording newsaholic. Like really, really bad. I mean, sites up, in the background all the time, and the news on a TV in my office, all day while I'm working, flipping between all the channels. I mean, I am someone who tries to get all angles, because I want to be well informed. So I'd be flipping between CNBC and MSNBC and CNN and Fox News and trying to see every single angle. I mean, it was sick. Like I had a sickness, and for your health, for your mental health, for, being able to get things done, for, not worrying about every single second, stop reading all the news. I mean, we need to keep abreast of what's going on in the world. But if it bleeds, it leads, and that's what's going to come to the top of your news feed, to the top of whatever website, to the top of whatever channel you're watching, and it's on both sides. It's not a this side does do this and this side doesn't. Both of them. So you gotta stop so much news, because you're just going everything in a negative light, and we're all doomed, and all that. But life will be much better. You'll have a much positive outlook if you close the tab for a little while.
Yeah, it's the Stoics. There's several different quotes that you could go there. We control our reaction. That's one of the key things, and I think we talked about it with Chris Anderson in that interview. A whole bunch of inflation news, right? Inflation, and it's worst in 40 years. How is it affecting you? The one thing that you can control is not only your reaction to it, but your own business. Like if you know your numbers, and you've got your processes and your system in place with your own business, and you've got it under control, you're going to know how bad inflation is. And I've said it multiple times. I think people get a worse impression based on the headline than the reality of it. Mm-hmm. Inflation, it's not hurting me. I mean, the stuff is tanking, yeah, but it's not just groceries. It's, nor do I think it's inflation based. It's it just happens. It's 80-20 probably. If you boil it down, and just keep moving, just keep pumping stuff in, and feed the beast, and I think you'll be all right.
And take some time and look at history. We've had bad economic times, in 2008, in 2000. We could go back to the 80s when my grandfather actually bought a house on a credit card because interest rates were so high that the credit card was better than a mortgage. And then you want to go back even further to, maybe the worst time, and talk about the Great Depression. Even in the Great Depression, there was only 24% unemployment. There were bread lines and things like that, but we pulled out the worst of what happened, and we don't often talk about, what did all the good things that actually did come out of that. That economic depression. Some of the companies we know and love today were started in those times. GE and several others came out of the Great Depression that are still around today. So I find the harder the times, the better opportunity for the people ready to up to the plate and do what needs to be done. Yeah, I don't wish an economic downturn on the country as a whole, or to affect any one person. But to be quite honest, if it does happen, I really just see it as one giant opportunity for those of us who kind of have our eyes open and are ready to pounce, and leverage opportunities that are available to us.
Yep, absolutely. So we are on our last question, believe it or not.
All right.
So, and this one's for beginners, and this is a good one, especially for beginners. So, with no more working capital while waiting on shipments, sales. Wait, I read that wrong. So there's no more working capital because they're waiting on shipments, sales, and then payouts to reinvest in inventory. In that meantime, what are some things that you could or should be doing?
This is a really good question. I like this one. So I think there are several things. Number one, just because you don't have any money to invest does not mean that you don't have to source. And what that is, let's say that I don't know, you've got $1,000 to invest in, and you spent all of it. I don't. If you've gotten into a bit of sourcing for 2 hours every single, I don't think that you should put that habit on hold until you have money to spend. You should continue sourcing, and rather than spending money on those products, put them into a spreadsheet and save them for when you do have money. Come back to them, and if they're still profitable, now you've got a list of things that you could potentially buy without having to do all the work. Okay. Uh, the other thing you should do is make sure that you're taking care of your account. Spend some time making sure that there aren't any issues. If an issue does crop up, make sure that you're handling it. Make sure that your inventory is being reconciled. Make sure that all of the units are getting checked in and sold. Make sure your accounting is up to date, because you don't want to wait until December to do all of your books. You want to make sure that those are up to date at all times. It just makes your life a lot easier. But the biggest is don't stop sourcing. And even if you need to maybe give a lead or two away to, or join a mastermind and give to someone else, whatever you want them, but don't stop. Having more leads is never a bad thing, and I think that would be the best use of your time. And it's good practice, especially for a newer person. Continuing to get those reps in, even without spending any money, will make you better in the long run. So that's what I would do personally.
Yeah, and that's really good advice, especially knowing that this question's coming from a beginner. We hinted at it earlier. Yeah, there's just a certain amount of reps that you have to get in. You have to work out all those bad buys. I still remember I was at Walmart when I was very early on in my Amazon selling career, and there was a Facebook group where every once in a while they would make this post where it's like, should you buy, or is this a good buy, or something, and people could post different ASINs, and the more experienced sellers would kind of chime in and give their opinions. And I found this weed eater on clearance at Walmart, and I was so excited that I found something that was so much cheaper than the MSRP, and it almost checked every single box, except it didn't really sell that often,
Mm-hmm.
but when it did, man, it was really good. And it was one of those things I remember feeling like, you asked the question, I posted it, and I went home, and I was hoping so badly that the answer was yes, it was a good buy, because I would have hopped in the car, right back in the car as soon as I read it, and run down there and grabbed them. I wanted the win so bad that I sacrificed a couple of the parameters of what I had learned was a good buy, just in my haste as a newer seller. So, so the more you can source, just get a feel for it, because, and there's also the saying that you make money on the buy. So the more time you could put in sourcing, sourcing leads is, another word for sourcing opportunities. So obviously the more opportunities you can give yourself, and keep a spreadsheet of all these opportunities, not only are you getting your reps in, but now you've got essentially what people pay good money for on lead lists and groups, and people spend time in masterminds, all for that opportunity, to have a pool of things to buy that are potentially profitable. So that's never not going to be a good exercise.
Absolutely. Yeah. That was a great question to end this episode on. I think that was a great one.
Yeah, I agree.
Now I will have to admit, I totally screwed up. I forgot to get a quote of the week ready for us, so we may have to go without one this week. But we'll make it up next week. I know that for sure.
Didn't I? Man, I thought I had. All right, do your outro, and I'll see if I can drum one up.
Well, I'll tell you what, guys. Thanks for listening. I appreciate you guys. Again, try to keep this to about 90 minutes. It wasn't the original idea, but that's what you guys are going to get because we're long-winded, and I think, I like the sound of my own voice, apparently. But thanks for listening. Please do us a huge solid. Drop a review on whatever platform you're listening on. Hit the like button. Make sure to go and grab the tracker. Follow us on social media. All the links are going to be in the show notes or in the YouTube video where you watch. And we appreciate you spending some time with us. This is a lot of fun for us to do, and hopefully you're getting some value out of this. So appreciate each and every one of you guys. Chris, I appreciate you for hanging out with me again, and think we'll see you guys next week.
Right.
Thanks for listening to Clear the Shelf with Chris and Chris. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a screenshot on your phone and share to Facebook, Instagram, or your favorite FBA group, and be sure to tag me and let me know why you liked it and what you'd like to hear more from us in the future. Also, I'd like to give you some free gifts for listening. Head over to rabbittrailchallenge.com and repricerchallenge.com for some free courses to further your business. Thanks for listening.